competition's fierce now. So what if they're talking with you and 4 other investors? They need to know who's going to take this deal to close, who's actually going to meet with them, give their word on a price, stick to that price, not beat them up a week before closing, and actually close too. And that's where the credibility play comes in big time. Because you might get a deal that you offer $10,000 less than the next guy, but they trust you.
Hey, what's up? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Indie Investor Podcast. Got Bryan Driscoll on the podcast episode with me today. What's going on, Bryan?
What's up, man?
What's up, dude? Super excited to just chat with you today, man. Getting ready to enter 2025. Any crystal ball predictions?
It's going to be a great year.
All right. For investors, we going to flip or flop?
I think if you hustle and you're smart, you're going to do well.
Awesome. Sounds good, man. Sounds good. Hey, guys, we're going to talk to Bryan. So Bryan Driscoll is a good friend of mine. He's part of the Collected Genius Mastermind group that I'm in. Been friends now for a couple of years. We did a mission trip down to Guatemala a couple of years ago. Got to know him well. He is a master marketer. So he's got the ninja skills when it comes to marketing, especially for real estate investors. Been doing that for many, many years. Actually just wrote a book too called The Goodness Game, which probably didn't have much to do with marketing, but pick up his book at Amazon, The Goodness Game. Quick summary of The Goodness Game, Bryan.
A quick summary is, I think everybody in the world wants to make a difference in the world, and they think they have to do something huge. So what I did is I wrote The Goodness Game, and it breaks down into finding out what your helping style is, finding out what gives you energy and takes energy away, and shows you it's really the small things in the world that make a big difference. And gamifying it, making it a game that you can play with your family, your team, all that kind of stuff.
I love that. I always interesting. Always trying to gamify things, and obviously that comes into marketing, trying to inspire, encourage your team, and I got just different things to gamify. Anything that you can recommend as far as a business leader and owner to gamify your team. Anything come to mind?
Well, yeah, even things like the Goodness Game right there, like anything that you can get your team and get behind and put KPIs to and make it fun, like with the rewards. So, for example, in like the Goodness Game, you're helping people. The reward is you get to feel good, right?
I love that.
But if you look at it in business or your family, you have all your different team members, and everyone on your team, people want to work, but they want to accomplish things. Like they want to feel like there's a purpose. So I know some places will pick a charity every year, or a family every year at Christmas time, they buy them something. Or like we went to Guatemala. I know a lot of people do mission trips with their team. They go to Mexico. So it's just different things like that, getting people together and it's like turning something into having fun. Like people want to play games. It's a fun thing to do, but you can do it and it helps your culture big time in your business.
Yeah, I love that. Couple of things that we've actually started doing this year. One of the things we've been doing for several years is kind of a small thing, but we give everybody $100 for Christmas to give away. So it's almost like the gift of giving. And then after Christmas, we spend one meeting just kind of sharing how we gave away that particular money. Some people might just give it to a charity, but some people, like I took my whole family out to Salvation Army one time and bought on Christmas Eve, bought someone there that was picking up presents, bought them things, or that's just fun, right? I've seen some of our VAs from the Philippines, they're filling 100 bags full of food, giving away to homeless, just things like that. It's just makes things impactful, which is awesome. So, but today we're going to talk about just marketing, man. So you've been in marketing now, especially for real estate investors, the last several years, and I want to just kind of talk to you about just different trends coming into 2025. I mean, such just a shift in marketing. I remember, hearing about direct mail, and we started doing that. We could spend $1,000 and get a deal. And then everyone started doing that. Now, cold calling, texting, and online marketing, offline marketing. But I want to see, like, here's some of the common themes that I've heard. Had lunch with a guy today, and he said he lives in Fort Wayne. He said it's saturated. The marketing in Fort Wayne is saturated. I'm in Indianapolis, and everyone's saying it's saturated. There's just too much, right? So I want to hear from you. What do we do coming in 2025 when people are thinking that's in the back of their minds? So take us there, man.
It's a good question. So I think it's always saturated. If you look at everything, it's going to be saturated all the time, right? As long as you have investors. The market's changing now, and it's getting a little bit harder. So here's what I see the people succeeding really well. The people that are succeeding have multiple dispos, and they're looking at solving people's problems versus looking at people like a number. So if you have somebody that wants to sell their house, obviously you're going to try to do it and make a profit, right? But the people that are doing really well can list on the MLS, they can flip, they can wholesale, they can do novations, they can do sub two. They have different ways to solve people's problems. And then they're meeting with the seller with the problem in mind. It's like, hey, Mrs. Jones, what's your actual problem? And they're not focused on, hey, I got to get this for 70% ARV. They're focused on what's your problem and how can I help you and make profit, like create a true win-win where you make money, their problem solved. And they're just using all these different tools to solve the problem. So that's what I see, like the guys really, really doing well. The guys that are only wholesaling and looking for 70% ARV, they're going to have some problems just because it's getting a little bit tight on that side.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's one thing we've had to do is just to try to pivot a little bit on our dispo side. And a lot of times, especially as wholesalers, because we come from that particular world, we're constantly focused so much on the acquisitions and trying to, have the perfect pitch or the talk off on that. But just be thinking about, multiple exit strategies on a dispo. And we're thinking like that. Hey, could we wholesale this? Is there not enough meat on the bone to wholesale it? So maybe we flip this one. Or if there's definitely not enough meat, could you list it on the MLS like you talked about, or do an innovation? Yeah, that's really, really interesting. We actually started seller financing, which is a totally different dispo strategy as well. No, that's great. I like that. But so multiple dispo strategies, you kind of come from the digital world. How's that kind of like happening for people? Anything you see some of the success versus the unsuccessful people doing on that besides the multiple dispo strategies?
Yeah. So here's what I see on the marketing side. I see this a lot with seasoned investors and newer investors. They look at the wrong KPI. So what I mean by that is a lot of people, when they're doing digital marketing, look at, hey, I want to get the cheapest cost per lead, which makes sense, right? You log into Google or Facebook, and you're like, oh, wow, I'm getting leads really cheap. And they're not focusing on the cost per deal or cost per appointment, right? So one mistake I see people doing is they have kind of clickbaity type of ads. So we'll talk about Facebook because Facebook's a visual type of ad. So there's different ways you can run ads on Facebook. You can say, hey, you know what? I click this link to find out how much your house is worth, right? You'll get leads for stupid cheap. And you'll get a whole bunch of them. If that's the number you're looking at, you think you're doing really well, but you're not going to make any money because you have to think from the seller side. They just click something to find out how much your house is worth. Like you might get a deal if you're lucky, but it's misleading, right? Versus spend the extra money on be extremely direct, like use beat up houses in your ads. Say, sell your house fast. We pay cash. Be extremely direct. Pay the extra money, put them through a landing page, like a website that explains everything you do. Like, hey, we're investors. We're not paying top dollar, but we can pay cash. We can close as fast or as slow as you want, which is another thing I see, a little side tangent. Everyone thinks they want a fast sale. People want a convenient sale. Some people don't want to sell fast. Some people want to sell in 2 months and they need to coordinate that closing date perfectly. But lay out everything about your process so people can see it and just be extremely direct. And then track your KPIs. So you look at your leads, like KPIs are very important. So track like leads, contact rate, how many appointments are booked, how many show up, how many contracts you get out, and how many closed deals you have, and track those closely. Because if you get leads for cheap, for example, and you can't get a hold of any of them, there's a problem with your marketing or your lead manager. But if you can get a hold of a lot of your leads, but they're not booking appointments, still might be lead quality or lead manager, but it allows you to pinpoint. If you can get the appointments, but they're not showing up, then you can look at that. It's like, okay, these people are showing up. They're qualified, or they're booking the appointment, but they're not showing up, or they're canceling on us, but they're qualified. What is it? I found, I was just looking through a client's appointment. He was having a drop rate on appointments. His mistake was he was booking people, and the people that canceled were booked 48 hours or further in the future. People that he booked, say they lead came in today and they booked an appointment tomorrow, almost never canceled. But today, if today's, I don't know what day is, say today's Tuesday, if he booked it for Friday, he might have a 40% drop rate. So it allows you, tracking your KPIs, show you exactly where to look. Or if you're meeting the people and you got a whole bunch of contracts out and they don't close, it's like, okay, now you have an acquisitions guy. Maybe you're not setting realistic expectations, or maybe your sales guy has an issue. Or if the contracts close, it allows you to like track and like pinpoint exactly where to look. Really long answer for you there, but
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I think the bottom line is just you dial in your scorecard, dial in your KPIs, and just get a little bit more granular on it. I mean, so we track like cost per deal, things like that, but even cost per appointment, cost per lead, but then even getting granular, like what's going on? Is it the lead manager or is it our process? And what is that kind of like? What does that kind of look like? I want to ask you, marketing just kind of changes. I used to do mostly marketing for private sellers, and I would try to be the guy next door where like I was Joe Smith, yellow paper, red ink, just local guy, right? No one really knows me. I'm just the guy next door. And that was kind of the marketing that we did. Now we're actually going a little bit more branding. And I don't know if this is a good move or a bad move. Maybe I'll just kind of bounce it off of you. And where, again, most people are doing we buy houses now, buy your house fast, cash, whatever that looks like, stock photos. You get all that stuff in the mail all the time. And we're doing more, again, like our team. Is your house a burden? We'll buy it. We solve difficult people that are in difficult situations. We solve problems and people in difficult situations. One of our tags is sell directly to a company you can trust. So like that was kind of one of our, try to be the trusted resource. So a lot of our marketing is going that direction. So like our direct mail, like our commercial, our radio ad is all saying this same message. It's a little bit more branded instead of, we'll buy your house fast, cash, stock, whatever. What do you think about that?
I think it's good. So talking about branding, first being the guy next door, right? If you think about a seller, do they want to sell to a person or a big bank, right? Like I always look at it, if you're a big bank, big conglomeration coming in, they're going to assume you're trying to rip them off. If you come in like a normal person, you're good. Even a company, like a local company with a team, I think that's good because then they can see, okay, these are the people I'm dealing with. They're real people. They're not just suits and ties coming in and counting beans. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good play there. Branding is really good. The messaging also, I think, is really good because you have to be empathetic with sellers. You want to be direct. Like you don't want to just tell them, hey, we're your resource to pick our brain, but we're your resource when you have a problem, we can help you solve it. That makes sense. Right? You want to be really direct in your messaging, but I do like where you're going on that too, because it puts a face to it and it builds credibility. So when you're meeting them, even on your website, they can kind of feel like they know you a little bit before they meet you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what we think. I mean, this is kind of a pivot. What do you think still, begin guys that are just still putting out, we buy houses cash fast now, whatever that is, used to be the thing, right? Everyone did that. And now is that still working? Or I always felt like that message is more about the company than the person. Like, hey, we will buy your house cash. I don't know. Like, it just doesn't do much for me, but I guess it works.
Because it's generic. So here's what I would say. Check the KPIs. Like I always like looking at the numbers because I think the same thing a lot of times too. I do know we buy houses cash, we buy houses fast, sell my house fast, or sell your house fast, sell my house fast. Those buzzwords are the money makers. They've been tested. I don't know why. But primarily half of it is, I do know why. On the Google side, at least, because that's what people search.
Right.
So if someone searches sell my house fast and they come to a website that talks about that, then they found what they want. So it's kind of a hybrid. You want to stay direct with the messaging on what do they want to do? They want to sell their house fast, but then build that brand behind it because competition is fierce now. So what if they're talking with you and 4 other investors? They need to know who's going to take this deal to close, not just give me a number and then tell a whole bunch of investors to come through and pretend they're contractors and lie to them and try to wholesale it. Like, who's actually going to meet with them, give their word on a price, stick to that price, not beat them up a week before closing and actually close too. And that's where the credibility play comes in big time, because you might get a deal that you offer 10,000 less than the next guy, but they trust you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so true. No, that's just a good question. I mean, this is some of the stuff that we're always trying to pivot and figure it out. And I've been doing it 17 years, and I was talking to a guy yesterday who's been doing it 7, and I still don't really know. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, it's always changing, always pivoting, especially with this marketing stuff. Some other things that I've been seeing is just deep versus wide. Again, I was talking to an investor today, had lunch, and we're talking about saturation, the cities and the markets and the bigger markets. And so they're going outside, they're going to different counties, they're going wider, spreading it out, versus going deeper. And we've played around too. We're going wider because we can't get what we used to get. So now we're going wider, but then now my acquisitions managers are running all over the place and driving an hour here, hour there, 2 hours. And then now they're frustrated. And I'm trying to figure out that good balance of deep versus wide. If someone were to come to you like me, say, hey, I'm investing in Indianapolis. We're doing, pretty successful, but I'm not where I want to be at. I want to do some more deals. What would you say to me if I said, I think I should branch out and go wider? Or would you, or would you say, hey, you need to focus in and go deeper what you already know?
Yeah. I would ask you some questions first.
Yeah.
So first it would be, what's your process like? Like, what's your team like? If you get a lead 2 hours away, are you capable of having a virtual appointment?
Yeah.
Things like that, because you're right. You can go deep or wide, and they're two totally different business models, right? Going deep, you're investing in your backyard. So it's like, fine. I would tell you, if you wanted to go deep, tap out every single marketing channel available to you. TV, radio, mail, pay-per-lead, Google ads, Facebook, every single thing, even partnering with real estate agents. Like, just get out there, and because you can spend a lot of money in marketing if you go to all the different types of marketing and saturate your market. You can get way cheap. The broader you go, the cheaper the lead goes, lead cost, at least online. So for example, at our company, to buy a lead in any county in the United States, it's $300 minimum. If you want to buy a lead for the entire state, it's only $99. So you can figure out the math. You got 3 times as many at bats if you go wide. But the problem is, your process is built for it. You could talk to a whole bunch of people. It's like what we were talking about earlier with the cheap lead. It's like, are you going to have to talk to 100 people to get the deal versus 10? Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that really answers your questions there. It's like, do you want to play the virtual game or do you want to play the local game? Both are good. Yeah. And they both work for different people. It's kind of like you have to pick, though, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're exactly right, because then we tried to go wide, and now, our lead manager set up the appointment and it's 2 hours away. And then the acquisition manager is like, well, I don't want to do it. It doesn't sound like a great deal. So unless it's like a super home run, low hanging fruit, and they know right off the bat, they're just not even going to pay attention very closely. So
now you could try closing those over the phone,
right?
Or getting the contract before and then sending someone out after the contract's on there, and then telling them, hey, you know what? We're going to give you, based on what you told me on the phone, the condition of your property and pictures and things, I can give you this price, and then we need to look at it. That's a little more incentive there,
Yeah. But it's a process thing. Like, if your process is not set up like that, all of a sudden your mind goes straight to your normal process. And so you have to figure out, is your process different if you go wide?
And it's shiny too. You know what I mean? It's like shiny. If you do that, it's like, you don't want to keep pivoting. It's like, okay, we tried that, we failed. We tried this, we failed.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think because that takes a lot of energy. Avoiding some of the marketing pitfalls. So any type of common mistakes that you're seeing out there right now that real estate investors are making. I mean, one of the things, and I don't know this for a fact, I know my business, right? And we're doing okay. So like this year in our business, I'm like, hey, it's been a pretty good year for us. So I'm like, hey, we're doing okay. But I'm talking to other investors, and some people are really struggling, and I don't know how far they're struggling, So I'm just wondering, again, are we doing something different, or when I see other people struggling, or what are you seeing out there? Are people struggling? And then what are some of the common mistakes they're making right now?
Some people are. I see. So some of the mistakes I see, it's consistency, right? Like we were talking about this earlier too. It's like, if you're going to try a marketing channel, test it for 6 months. You're going to struggle if you try mail for 2 months and then you try pay per lead for 2 months and then you try Google for 2 months and you keep hopping. When you set up a marketing channel, get your budget and make sure you have at least 6 months worth of budget to consistently do something. Because I see if you keep bouncing, you're never going to get that runway. So you're always going to be like, you'll find out, hey, that marketing channel I just cut 2 months ago was actually good because I just locked down a $50,000 deal.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I see there. Number two, when you're spending money on marketing, a big mistake I see for people, especially people starting in the business, when a lead calls, you have to deal with it on the spot, which kind of stinks. It's like if you're the only person doing it, lead comes in at 3:00 on a Saturday and you're out with your kid, you need to pick up that phone because they're calling somebody else.
Yes.
So you have to have good processes. Number one, if you have a team, to make sure they're answering the phone or calling leads really quick. But if you're the only guy too, you got to be Johnny on the spot. You got to commit to, hey, you know what? I'm on call for the next 3 years or however long it is till I can afford to put somebody else on call.
Right. Yeah.
So those are big ones.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I would like to talk about like what is good versus not good if you're measuring KPIs. And I always look at the dollar in and dollar out. So if I put a dollar in, how much did I get out of that? How much money did I make? So is there like a point of reference? Like if I put in a dollar in, my rate of return, is there a good point where I say, yes, this is going well and I'm going to keep doing this or double down on it? Or I'm like, dude, I'm scrapping that.
There is. So there's different, especially in this space, because sometimes you hit a home run, sometimes you don't.
Right.
I would say for an even number, three times ROAS, like return on your ad spend, is good.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, I would focus more on your cost per deal, because what if you have a campaign that completely donked, but then you got $100,000 deal? It makes that channel look great. And you just got lucky on one deal. So
we just had that actually. So we have one channel that we're doing like okay, and I'm going over the marketing. I'm like, it's okay, but it's not great. But then we did, I think, an $85,000 deal, which shot it up. Now it looks awesome. Like, oh, let's double down. But really, we haven't done that many deals.
Right, and that's what it is. It's like, so you need to know that, because you're like, okay, this channel can support itself, right? But then if you look at the cost per deal, maybe some of the other channels are getting more deals, which give you more chances at an at-bat, depending on the targeting, things like that too. So you have to take that into consideration. But the cost per deal is in the return on ad spend. I would look at both 3-to-1 on the return though. Cost per deal, that comes down to your average deal size.
Yeah.
Like if you're only doing $10,000 deals, you can only spend max like $3,000 to get a deal. But if you're doing like $30,000, $40,000 or flips, things like that, you might be able to spend $8,000 or $10,000 per deal. And if you can do that consistently, you're good.
Right. What do you think about like the ones? So I know you do a lot of online marketing, pay per lead, and we do PPC. We also use you for pay per lead, things like that. But maybe the ones that don't bring in that many leads, right? But there may be hotter or warmer types of leads. Is it still a 3-to-1, or is it a little bit different? Like let's say PPC doesn't take that much energy for your team. Let's just, for example, and maybe you get 10 leads a month. So it doesn't take up a crazy amount of energy, but you get a deal from that and it's maybe 2-to-1. Is that still good? Or you're like, nah, just let's just scrap that.
Yeah, probably not the 2-to-1.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it comes down to cost per deal though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like the 2-to-1, the reason I say that is 2-to-1 just on marketing dollars. It's not counting the salary for the lead manager, the salary for the acquisitions guy. It's not counting any of the business expenses.
True.
So 2-to-1's probably going to break you even if you actually think about it, unless you're getting home runs,
Right.
But also, if you're only getting 10 leads, you're probably doing pretty well, because it's only going to cost you 10 leads.
Right.
It might cost you $250 a lead, maybe $300-$400, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's $400 and get 10 leads, that's $4,000 a deal. Most people are happy with that.
Right. No, that's good.
And one last thing on that though, don't cut the channel that's only giving you 10 leads if they're good. It's like, just let that go and don't replace it. Like, add to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because some of my stuff, just to be, transparent, is I got some stuff that's less than $3, and I'm always like, and they hover, right? Sometimes they're 2, but sometimes they go up and down. But then I got other channels that are 5-to-1, and I'm always like, should I take the money for that channel that's 2.5 to 1 and put it into the 5 to 1. I don't know. That's the 80-20 rule, right? Go double down on what's working.
Well, let me ask you this: the 5 to 1. What channel? Give me an example, like a channel that's performing well like that versus, we'll say, pay-per-click's a lower one.
Yeah. So pay-per-click's a little bit lower for us. Is the lower one for us, and then maybe like a cold calling, but we get a lot more leads from cold calling, and they're cheaper, right? Because it's just stacking leads. But there's a lot more energy put in the cold calling because we're getting 40 leads versus 8, or 10. So there's a lot more work that goes into those. But that's my return typically on that.
Okay, so here's what I look at. You're either paying with sweat or money, right? So with the cold calling, you're paying with sweat. You might not personally be doing, but you have to manage a team of people. It's like a lot of energy to do that. But in return for that energy, you're having a better ROAS.
Right.
On a pay-per-click, it will be lower, but you're not using any of your time, so it's more scalable. Normally on that kind of stuff, it's like you can inject more money into it and try to scale that up. The low effort and energy ones like pay-per-click are kind of where most investors try to get to. It's just a lot more expensive because you got to pay money there. Yeah. Versus on a cold calling, texting, things like that, it's super cheap. You want to get a really good ROAS, drive for dollars.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's true. Like get 1,000%. You know what I mean? You pay someone to drive around. But then it's the thing, it's like you want to keep leveling up. It's like take your current marketing and then take your team to bandwidth. And then in the marketing, be like, okay, let's cut the lowest one. Because whenever you add in all your expenses too, it might be more expensive on cold calling or it might not. I don't know. Like with acquisitions guy and everyone talking to the people too.
Yeah.
But it's just make a decision. It's like, okay, let's max ourselves out first. Don't cut anything. And one other thing in marketing, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So it's like if pay-per-click's performing, like say a 2 to 3 to 1, leave it go. Even if it's not getting 5 or 6.
Right.
It's paying for itself. So it's not costing you money unless it's like a big time suck. So leave that go, let the other ones go. And then when you get too busy, that's when you start chopping.
Right. No, it's good. I like that. Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. I think we're about out of time. We're just sticking to the meat and potatoes here on marketing coming into 2025. We could talk for days on this, but any just closing advice for our audience? Again, talking to mostly Indianapolis or Midwest investors here. Just kind of coming in as they start to think about, hey, how am I gonna make a go at this? Continue on. So
I would just say, just get into it. Like, don't think about it, get into it, because what's going to happen is if you keep thinking about, oh, this is never saturated market, or I got to do whatever, you're just going to get caught up in a headspace. Make an educated decision, jump in, start doing, and then track your KPIs and pivot properly. Yeah. Action's going to win the game. Action and hustle.
I love that. Awesome, man. Well, hey, thank you so much, Bryan, for being on the Indie Investor Podcast today. Wish you the best, brother. And make sure you guys go check out Bryan Driscoll. If you guys are interested, I know Bryan does digital marketing for many different areas throughout the nation. So make sure you check him out. What's the best place to go, Bryan, for that?
Motivatedleads.com.
motivatedleads.com. Let's make sure you check that out and get the goodness game. So let's support Bryan. He spent a lot of effort in this particular book, making those small, impactful things and leaving an impact. So thank you so much for being on the show, Bryan. We'll see you soon, man.
Thanks for having me. Talk soon.